Are you willing to choose Trump over the Constitution? Are you willing to choose Trump and Trumpism over the United States system of democracy and checks and balances? It is now Trump versus the Constitution in the United States. So Donald Trump, still, even 2 years later, actually we're going on 3 years now. It's getting a little obsessive. 3 years almost after the election, he still has not accepted the fact that he's lost. He is still coping. He is still seething. He overdosed on copium. He took like the finest. You know how some people like who take psychedelics or drugs, they like go up, never come back down? That's what it feels like with Trump. That he went up and he just hasn't come back down. And recently on his own platform, Truth Social, he, again, every time I ask this, do I say he truthed? Do I say he tweeted? It's not a tweet if it's on Truth Social. So I'm going to say he truthed. So he truthed out a message about massive and widespread fraud and deception and how he wants to suspend the Constitution so he can be reinstated in power. Quite literally, actively calling, openly calling for a coup. Let's read the post. Let's read the post. So with the revelation of massive, widespread, let me go full screen here, of massive and widespread fraud and deception and working closely with big tech companies, the DNC and the Democratic Party, do you throw the presidential election results of 2020 out and declare the rightful winner, or do you have a new election? A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those, listen to this part, even those found in the Constitution of the United States. Our great founders, in quotations for some reason, I don't know why, did not want and would not condone false and fraudulent elections. So, this is, I mean, I think he just had to, he saw Kanye was in the news. He was a little upset that Kanye was getting all the attention with his rants about the Jews, but he knows he can't rant about the Jews. That's not his shtick, I guess. So instead, he ranted about the election results, and he said some things here that are notable. Now, of course, the massive widespread fraud and deception lie, which led to January 6th and got people this idea in their head that it would be justifiable to overthrow the government, and that's what led to the violence of January 6th. That's nothing new. He has continued with this lie since he lost the election, which in my opinion should, like, in the minds of most Americans, completely, like, knock him off the list of somebody you would vote for. But he says here, specifically, that there's two options. Throwing the presidential election results of 2020 out and declaring the rightful winner. So he's saying, either you guys install me president right now, or we host a new election right now. So either A, coup, and put Trump in office because of Hunter Biden's penis getting censored on Twitter.com, because this is in reference to the Twitter files, or B, having a new election because Hunter Biden's penis was censored on Twitter.com. Both ridiculous, unconstitutional, highly illegal, and is like bordering on treason. A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. He is calling not even for the suspension. I downplayed it. I said he's calling, in the title of this stream, it says Trump calls for the suspension of Constitution. He didn't call for the suspension of the Constitution. He called for the termination of the Constitution. He's like, because of how bad 2020 was with the fraud and the election denial and everything else, we need to get rid of the Constitution. We need to terminate it because our founders, in quotation marks, would not condone the 2020 election. So we need to get rid of the Constitution. This is him not only calling for a new election or for him to be installed in power, asking for a coup, but to fundamentally rip up the checks and balances which has kept America stable for hundreds and hundreds of years as such a strange and wild democratic and somewhat expansionist experiment. He is talking about taking the bumpers, taking the training wheels, taking the, really, I would not even say that. I think that's underplaying it. Taking the pillars of our democracy and just smashing them up because he lost an election. When I said, I don't know when I said this exactly, but I said this on the show not too long ago. I said something along the lines of, Donald Trump will do anything for power. Anything. He does not hold any like fundamental principles around like liberty and freedom or like, you know, representative democracy and civil liberties and civil rights. And like, you know, he doesn't hold any of these fundamental values. Like you could look at his foreign policy. He doesn't hold really like any fundamental value. He'll go from Rex Tillerson to like John Bolton to Jared Kushner to like all these different foreign policy advisors to taking Trump at his word. I mean, Putin at his word, to then sending weapons, lethal weapons to Ukraine, then suspending those lethal weapons to Ukraine to try to get concessions and information about his political opponents. Like he has no fundamental views except for one thing. There's only one thing that Trump believes in. And that's Trump. Really, if I was to say, like what is Trump's politics? What is his, like, fundamental principle? Some people would say fascism, stuff like that. I wouldn't even necessarily use that word, but I would say that I think Trump is the most popular and most likely to be elected person that is closest to fascism running for office. I would call him like an oligarch. Like if there's any system of government that would be perfect for Trump and what he wants, it would be oligarchy. It'd be him having access to really doing anything to his political opponents, arrest them, investigate them, do anything he wants, and having a complete stranglehold on power. And you can see it from the way he talks. Like, this should have, like, caused a massive uproar. This statement, like, I mean, like, I hear so much from conservatives how much they care about the Constitution. That's like the founding thing. Like, if you listen to ask a Republican, what do they believe in? Like, the one answer I will consistently hear back is, I believe in the Constitution and the founding fathers. And we have Trump saying we need to terminate the Constitution because the founding fathers wouldn't have condoned the 2020 election. If you really care about the Constitution, this shit should set off a million red flags. Has it concerned to you, Dylan, that conservatives are liars? Look, I'm sure some conservatives are liars, or a decent amount of them are liars. But I also do believe that people, do hold principles that they care about. And I don't have any reason to believe that conservatives or Republicans don't genuinely care about the Constitution to some degree, even if they walk back on their conclusions on some of the things they're going to justify, like Guantanamo Bay. Now, to have somebody just come out and straight up say, fuck the Constitution, Trump above all, terminate the Constitution so I can regain power. This is now no longer a question about, like, who's the best, like, person for the country or da-da-da. This is a question on, are you willing to choose Trump over the Constitution? Are you willing to choose Trump and Trumpism over the United States system of democracy and checks and balances? It is now Trump versus the Constitution in the United States. And it's not like me who drew that line in the sand. It's not, some crazy libtard like Cenk Uygur or Anna Kasparian or me that did this, okay? It was the Republican Party who cares about the Constitution and messages on it. And it's now Donald Trump who's talking about terminating it. He drew the line in the sand. He was the one who drew the line in the sand about, we need to get rid of the Constitution. I didn't do it. He did. He said it. He posted it on Truth Social. He truthed it. Interview where House Republicans said he would still support Trump. Let me see. Is this actually after what was said? Yes, it is. Let's listen.
About Donald Trump's statement yesterday talking about suspending the Constitution. Your reaction?
Oh my God. No fucking way. I can't wait. Let's hear it. This is Donald Trump drawing a line in the sand, saying, suspend the Constitution and install me in power. He's quite literally saying, I am above the law. I am Donald Trump. That is what he's saying here. Let's hear it.
I have to ask you a question.
Come on, remember, the Republicans care about the Constitution. At least that's what we're told. Let's hear it.
About Donald Trump's statement yesterday talking about suspending the Constitution. Your reaction?
Well, you know, when President Trump was in office, I didn't make a habit of speaking out of his tweet du jour. I don't know what came out on his, whatever his new social platform is, but, you know, people were not interested in looking backwards.
Dodging. He's dodging. Do you think this guy, if Biden said right now, we're going to suspend the Constitution, because I don't know, Glenn Youngkin did not rightfully win in Virginia. We're going to suspend the Constitution, and they're going to keep me in power, and or we're going to host a new election in Virginia, or any of these things. He would be going wild. He'd be flipping tables. He'd be like throwing shit around the room saying, this is dictatorship. This is dictatorship. Dictatorship is coming. Dictatorship is coming. You'd see all those people on TikTok who talk about civil war. Those people would be going bombings and shit. They would be doing bombings. They'd be blowing up government buildings. They'd be going out and doing some crazy shit. If Joe Biden said he was going to not suspend even, but terminate the Constitution to keep him in power if he loses an election, there would be people who would take their militias and go out and start engaging in violence, trying to like take government offices. That would happen immediately. No questions asked. Unironically, this guy would be flipping out, doing backflips, cartwheels, saying the Democrats don't care about the Constitution. You would see it everywhere. But since it's Trump, and we don't know what the 2024 landscape is going to look like, he's just like, well, you know, I'm a moderate Republican, and I don't really care about what he posts on the internet. What he posts on the internet is an indication of what he wants to do. He is specifically saying he wants to terminate the Constitution. Like, I don't know, like, what else I'm supposed to say here. Like, he just doesn't care about democracy. Like, and you know, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be out of nowhere like, wow, you know what? Actually, I don't think there's going to be a lot, but there're going to be some people who are like, wow, we could never have seen this coming. We could have never have seen this coming. The guy for the last 7 years said that if he loses the election, it's rigged. He said it in the 2015 Republican primary. He said it in the 2016 general election. He said it in the 2020 general election, and he said it afterwards. He said it was rigged. He's been saying the same line for forever. He does not believe he can lose, or if he does lose and he believes he can lose, he will not allow himself to lose or walk out of the room peacefully, which is a terrifying concept for the peaceful transferal of power, which is why the transferal of power from Trump to Biden wasn't peaceful, and the Capitol was stormed and the process was delayed. My goodness, like, I just, like, if this was anyone else, this guy would be doing backflips and doing 20, like, dude, he was talking about, like Hillary Clinton is now part of the deep state. You'd be seeing so much. You'd be seeing so much anger from this guy. But it's like nothing once Trump talks about suspending the Constitution from a representative from the party that's supposedly the party of the Constitution.
People who gave us the majority, and again, we barely won it. We barely eked it out. So let's be straight about where we're at. They gave us an opportunity, and we need to perform, and we need to care about the issues that they care about, which is how do they lower the cost at the pump. And I know when I go into...
The interviewer has to bring it back. Like, sir, you didn't answer my question, though. Let me read it for you if you haven't known it before. And then you should just read out the message. Like, this guy's dodging. He's dodging. He is more scared of Donald Trump than he is committed to defending the Constitution in public.
Heinen's that the price of everything I buy, eggs, bacon, toast, it all goes up, right? It hasn't gone down. And again, people have to live within a budget. What are we doing to make sure that they fall within that budget? What are we doing to make sure that their lives are better? And how do we continue to make sure that they have the jobs and the economy is stable and they have the jobs to be able to live and take care of their families?
Donald Trump was your nominee in 2016 and 2020. You voted for him in 2016 and 2020. Now he's talking about suspending the Constitution. Can you support a candidate?
No. He's not talking about suspending the Constitution. Thank you for asking the question again. He's not talking about suspending it. He's talking about terminating it. He didn't say permanently, but there's a difference between suspending something and terminating it. If I said I'm going to suspend democratic elections, that's that's already scary, but that's different than I'm saying I'm going to terminate democratic elections. One of them kind of has a feeling of finality to it, doesn't it?
2020. Now he's talking about suspending the Constitution. Can you support a candidate in 2024 who's for suspending the Constitution?
Well, again, it's early. I think there's going to be a lot of people in the primary.
Damn, he can't answer. Why do you even go and do interviews if you can't answer questions? Like, why are you in public if you're not going to answer questions?
The day you will say whoever the Republicans end up pick, I'll fall in behind, because that's...
Even if it's Donald Trump and he's called for suspending the Constitution?
Well, again, I think it's going to be a big field. I don't think Donald
Not
Trump's
answer.
going to clear out
Still
the field
going.
like he did
He's still going.
2016.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking you if he's the nominee, will you support him?
I will support whoever the Republican nominee is.
Damn.
And I just don't think that at this point he'll be able to get there, because I think there's a lot of other good quality candidates out there.
That's a remarkable statement. You'd support a candidate who's come out for suspending the Constitution?
Well, you know, he says a lot of things.
Oh, boy. Okay. I'm sorry. Can I just say, ABC, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this interview. He's holding him there. He's holding them down. I'm so sick of interviews where they'll ask a question, they'll dodge, and they'll just move on like nothing happened. He's holding them here. Like, that's a remarkable thing. You also support a president who wants to terminate. He's saying suspend. He should say terminate. Use the word terminate. He didn't say suspend in the tweet and the truth. He said terminate. But thank you for actually following up. Oh my God.
Candidate who's come out for suspending the
there, because I think there's a lot of other good quality candidates out there.
That's a remarkable statement. You'd support a candidate who's come out for suspending the Constitution?
Well, you know, he says a lot of things. You have to take them in context, and right now...
what do you mean?
I have to worry about making sure it's Republican.
What context is the termination of the Constitution, getting rid of it, appropriate?
Governance group and the Republican majority, that we make things work for American people. And I can't be really chasing every one of these crazy statements that come out from any of these candidates at the moment.
But that's an extraordinary statement. You can't come out against someone who's for suspending the Constitution?
Well, first off, he has no ability to suspend the Constitution. Secondly...
But he says he's for it.
Well, you know, he says a lot of things that...
what the fuck? Could you imagine if Biden just came out on stage tomorrow and he was just like, from now on, guys, okay, I have suspended free speech. No, I've terminated free speech. Free speech is no longer there. Now, let's say that he doesn't have the power to do that. Could I just say, well, you know, Biden, you know, he's an old man. He fumbles around. He says things. He says this. He says that. It is what it is. You know, he's an old man, you know, something, you know, you never know. Like, if I had to, like, every time Biden had a gaffe, I had to, like, condemn it. Like, oh my God, like, whoa, that'd be so much. I would be waffling. I'd be dodging. I would look weak-willed. I would look like I don't even have a spine. The ability of me to stand up on my own two legs would go away because my backbone has been replaced with jelly. And so... I just don't understand, like, what is Trump really that terrifying? Like, you got another option. You have DeSantis, right? There's other people. Pence is still there. I mean, not very likely he'll be president, but he's still there. Like, there's other options, dog. If you ran and got into politics because you cared about the issues, like, is not one of the issues you care about the preservation of the Constitution? Definitely when you're a Republican and that's supposed to be the thing you care about? Are you really more terrified of Trump lashing out at you than you are committed to defending the Constitution?
That doesn't mean that it's ever going to happen, so you got to accept exact fact from fantasy, and fantasy is that we're going to suspend the Constitution and go backwards. We're moving forward, and we're going to continue to move forward as a Republican majority and as a Republican conference.
It really feels like it's impossible. It is impossible for him to condemn a thing that Donald Trump says. Like, if Donald, like... at this point, I feel like it's a situation where Donald Trump could have said what Kanye said, and he'd be like, look, I mean, like, if I had to contend, like, I don't know what else to say, man. Look, I know, like, when Hillary said the basket of deplorable things, that was bad politics, but this guy is in that fucking basket, okay? Just gotta say. Or he's terrified of the basket, one of the two. I do also want to say that this isn't the only kind of terrifying statement that's come out recently in reaction to the Twitter files, which this person, Shoe for Congress, not shoe on head for Congress, but Shoe for Congress, this woman won the Republican primary to run against, I think it was AOC, or was it Ilhan Omar? One of the two. Wait, it was Ilhan Omar. She won the primary to win against Ilhan Omar. She was the general election candidate against Ilhan Omar. She got over 30% of the vote against Ilhan, but she still lost. And in reaction to the Twitter files posted by Matt Tabibi, she said, "We can no longer get rid of tyranny by the ballots. It's only by bullets now. A direct incitement for political violence, possibly insurrection, terrorism, who knows." She isn't really specific. She's pretty vague about it. Look, I think that this type of message doesn't connect with independent voters, right? I don't think it connects with them. I think from the 2022 midterms, it's pretty obvious that the candidates who ran on stuff like this, they got blown out, whether it be Dan Cox in Maryland, Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania, Carrie Lake, it was very close, but she lost as well. Dr. Oz was not as far as this, but the little bit he did tamper, he got smacked. Like Blake Masters, the person who compared abortion to genocide, he lost against Mark in Arizona. Like they most of them in competitive races, they got blown out. But I think there's two things I'm considering here. Just because these guys lost in competitive races did not mean that they still won in non-competitive races. A lot of these psychos still won in Republican seats that are a lot more safe. So if you're kind of like in deep red territory, you can post stuff like this and you don't need to care if an independent votes for you or not, because you got the Republican base and they're going to stick by you. You can see that with Marjorie Taylor Greene. You can see that with Matt Gaetz. You can see that with Lauren Boebert, even though Lauren Boebert almost lost. It was very close. Really sucks when we didn't beat her. You can see that with a lot of candidates, extreme candidates on the fringes like that. And so that's the first thing. So these people aren't exactly going away, so we still have to deal with them in the meantime. And the second thing is that Republicans, I feel like, were kind of cucked hardcore by the midterms. Milo Yiannopoulos said it best, and this is the only time I'll ever say this. He was on Tim Pool's show, and I disagree with Milo about everything, but on the show, Tim Pool was trying to kind of somewhat defend Republicans' election results, saying, we still won. And Milo was like, no, we didn't. No, we didn't win. Because people didn't just want to have a 1 to 2 seat House majority. People wanted to see the left suffer. People wanted to use this moment as like a relief moment against people they see as evil, bad people. They wanted to see them get their just desserts. He wanted to see them shriek in pain. But they didn't get that. Every Democrat, me included, that I know, was pretty generally pleasantly surprised by the midterm election results, which were historically bad for Republicans. And the Democrats actually gained ground on the state level. And looks like if we win in Georgia, on the Senate as well. And so I think without that shrieking for a lot of these extremists that they were priming themselves to, and because they live in a bubble, they thought it was inevitable that was going to come. And after 7 to 8 years of weird election denial propaganda going into their head, right? I think a lot of them are while there's not more of them than ever, I think they're reaching a tipping point, the ones that are still there, where they feel like, well, what's the solution? If we lost in 2020 and 2022 and 2018, that's like 6 years of L's, 2018, 2020, and 2022. They might start, be starting to think like there's no other option. Democracy isn't working to get what we want, so let's get violent. And that's how you get to messages like, we can no longer get rid of tyranny by the ballots. It's only by the bullets now, from the Republican nominee against Ilhan Omar. Dude, I gotta say, there is something funny about Republicans like, we want Ilhan Omar out of office because she's an extremist. And then they run somebody against her because they want to like paint her as like, oh, look at this kind of, and if you look at like Marjorie Taylor Greene, how they talk about, oh, this Islamic extremist. And then they run somebody against her and immediately they're like, we must kill the enemy. Only by the bullets, kill them all. And you go to like Ilhan Omar, she's like, I'm so accepting of queer people and LGBTQ plus IA community, and like, oh my, it's like, it couldn't be more starkly different on the extremism scale. My goodness. swing and a miss for Republicans. But I gotta say, man, the rhetoric is escalating, and it feels like a lot of Republicans are still too much of a, honestly, I don't want to say it that way, but they're still too scared, still too scared to really push back on Trump.